Lizzy Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. And when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Today we're looking into one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in American history, the story of Lizzy Borden and the infamous Borden House. Most of you know the story, but today we are exploring both sides of the tale, the natural and the supernatural. On a quiet summer morning in 1892, Fall River, Massachusetts, was rocked by the brutal murders of Andrew and Abby Borden. Their daughter Lizzie was the prime suspect in a case that has baffled and fascinated for over a century. But the story doesn't end with the trial. The house where these horrific crimes took place is still standing, and some say the spirits of the Bordens never left. Cold spots, ghostly apparitions, and eerie whispers are just a few of the unexplained phenomena reported by those who dare to visit. Join me as we unravel the dark history of the Borden House and explore why it's considered one of the most haunted locations in America. Could it be that the spirits of Andrew and Abby Borden are still seeking justice? Or is something far more sinister at play? Let's find out. Welcome to Streamville. Picture this: Fall River, Massachusetts, 1892. A quaint New England town gripped by fear and suspicion. The Borden residence, once a symbol of prosperity, now stained with the blood of a gruesome double murder. Andrew and Abby Borden, brutally slain in their own home. Their daughter Lizzie, the prime suspect. But did she do it? The evidence is shaky, the motives unclear. Before the infamous murders that made her a household name, Lizzy Borden was an active and respected member of her community in Fall River, Massachusetts. Born on July 19, 1860. Lizzie was deeply involved in her community and church. She was a Sunday school teacher at the Central Congregational Church, where she taught children of immigrants. Her involvement in the church extended beyond teaching, as she was also part of various social and charitable organizations, including the Women's Christian Temperance Union and the Fruit and Flower Mission. These activities allowed Lizzie to give back to her community, and she was well regarded for her efforts in helping the less fortunate. Her participation in these groups highlighted her desire to be an integral part of the social fabric of Fall River. In contrast, Lizzie's older sister, Emma Borden, was much more reserved and less involved in public life. Born on March 1, 1851, Emma took on a maternal role after their mother passed away when Lizzie was only 2 years old. Emma was known to be shy and preferred to stay out of the spotlight. Unlike Lizzie, she did not engage in community activities or seek to build a public profile. Emma's life was more private, and she seemed content to remain in the background, focusing on her home life rather than the social and charitable endeavors that Lizzie pursued. This difference in personality and public engagement set the sisters apart, with Lizzie being the more outgoing and community-focused of the two. Let's rewind the clock to before the bloodshed. Back to a time when the Borden family lived seemingly ordinary lives. Andrew Borden, a successful businessman, ruled his household with a tight fist. His second wife, Abby, was stepmother to Lizzie and her older sister, Emma. Tensions simmered beneath the surface of their seemingly respectable facade. Lizzie, unmarried at 32, craved independence in a society that stifled women. Her relationship with her stepmother was strained, to say the least. Whispers of family feuds, financial disputes, and simmering resentment painted a troubled picture. Andrew Borden, the patriarch of the Borden family, was a self-made man, a pillar of the Fall River community. He'd amassed his fortune through shrewd business dealings, his fingers in everything from real estate to banking. Yet despite his wealth, Andrew clung to his frugal ways, earning him a reputation for being tight-fisted, even miserly. His penny-pinching ways extended to his family, creating a sense of resentment within the walls of their unassuming home at 92 2nd Street. By the time of his death, he was worth an estimated $300,000, equivalent to millions today. Yet he lived a life that reflected his humble beginnings rather than his substantial wealth. Andrew Borden's thriftiness was notorious. Despite his significant financial resources, he chose to live in a modest, relatively plain house on 2nd Street, rather than in the more fashionable and affluent area of Fall River known as the Hill, where many wealthy families resided. His reluctance to spend money extended to the living conditions in the Borden household. The home lacked many modern conveniences that were becoming common in the homes of the wealthy during that era. For example, the Borden House did not have indoor plumbing, electricity, or even a bathroom. Instead, they relied on outdoor privies and chamber pots, and the house was lit by oil lamps. This stark contrast between Andrew's wealth and the family's living conditions was a source of tension within the household, particularly for Lizzie and her sister Emma, who were well aware of the comforts enjoyed by others in their social class. Andrew's frugality also extended to his control over the household, where he maintained strict authority over financial matters. His unwillingness to spend money on improving their living conditions or on luxuries contributed to the strained relationships within the family, especially between Andrew and his daughters. Andrew's stern demeanor and strict rules permeated the Borden household. He ran his family like a business, expecting obedience and adherence to his traditional values. His daughters, Lizzie and Emma, lived constrained lives, their every move scrutinized. The arrival of Abby Durfee Gray as Andrew Borden's second wife further strained the already tense atmosphere within the Borden home. Abby, a woman of simple origins, was viewed by society as an unsuitable match for the wealthy widower. Whispers of gold digging and social climbing followed her like a shadow, casting a pall over her relationship with her stepdaughters. Lizzie, in particular, harbored a deep resentment towards her stepmother, refusing to address her as mother, and opting for the formal Mrs. Borden instead. Abby's presence disrupted the delicate balance of power within the Borden family. She brought with her siblings and a potential claim to Andrew's wealth, a source of constant anxiety for Lizzie and Emma, who feared being displaced in their own home. The sisters viewed Abby as an intruder, an outsider who threatened their inheritance and their place in their father's affections. The walls of the Borden home seemed to whisper with secrets, each room holding its own share of unspoken resentments and simmering tensions. Lizzie, stifled by her father's control and threatened by Abby's presence, became increasingly withdrawn, her resentment festering like a wound. She sought solace in her animals, her only companions in a house that felt more like a gilded cage. The sisters, united in their animosity towards their stepmother, found common ground in their shared unhappiness. They confided in each other, their whispers fueling their resentment, their frustrations growing with each passing day. The once close-knit family had become fractured, their relationships poisoned by suspicion, jealousy, and a growing sense of desperation. Adding fuel to the fire were rumors of financial disputes within the family. In the days leading up to the infamous murders, there were several strange occurrences that added to the already tense atmosphere in the Borden household. One of the most unsettling events was the sudden illness that affected multiple members of the family. About a week before the murders, Lizzy Borden's father, Andrew Borden, her stepmother, Abby Borden, and Lizzie herself all fell mysteriously ill. The symptoms included severe stomach pain, vomiting, and general malaise. The illness was particularly concerning because it affected Andrew and Abby, who were usually in good health. Abby Borden became so alarmed that she confided in a neighbor, Dr. Bowen, expressing her fear that the family might have been poisoned. She suspected that the milk they were drinking had been tampered with, but Dr. Bowen dismissed her concerns, attributing the illness to food poisoning caused by eating leftover food, such as some bad mutton. The idea of poisoning was not entirely out of the question, especially considering the tensions within the household. The relationship between Lizzie and her stepmother, Abby, was strained, and Lizzie was known to harbor resentment towards her. This underlying animosity, combined with the family's sudden illness, fueled suspicions. Adding to the mystery, around the same time, Lizzy Borden visited a local drugstore where she attempted to purchase prussic acid, a highly toxic substance, commonly known as hydrogen cyanide. When questioned by the pharmacist about her reason for wanting the acid, Lizzie claimed she needed it to clean a sealskin cape. However, the pharmacist refused to sell it to her without a prescription, as prussic acid was known to be a deadly poison. This incident raised eyebrows, especially after the murders, as it suggested that Lizzie might have been considering using poison to harm someone in the household. The combination of the family's sudden illness and Lizzie's attempt to purchase poison contributed to the suspicions that surrounded her after the brutal killings of her father and stepmother, just days later. One of the most notable incidents involved sightings of a strange man lurking around the Borden property. Bridget Sullivan, the Borden family's live-in maid, recalled seeing a man standing by the fence near the Borden house on several occasions. This man was described as someone unfamiliar to the neighborhood, and his presence raised concerns, especially considering the heightened tensions within the household. Additionally, Lizzy Borden herself reported seeing a strange man around the house. According to Lizzie, she had noticed a man loitering near the property, and this man seemed out of place. Lizzie mentioned this to friends and even to her father, Andrew Borden, but it's unclear if any action was taken in response. Another curious event involved a robbery at the Borden house the year before the murders, in 1891. A small amount of cash and some jewelry were stolen from the master bedroom, a room typically off-limits to everyone except Andrew and Abby. The robbery was never solved, and some speculated that it might have been an inside job, possibly by someone within the family or someone familiar with the house. The unsolved robbery, combined with sightings of the strange man, contributed to the growing sense of unease in the Borden household. These strange occurrences, along with the mysterious illness that afflicted the family, created an atmosphere of suspicion and fear in the days leading up to the murders. After the killings, these incidents were scrutinized by investigators and the public alike, as they searched for clues and tried to piece together what might have led to the brutal events of August 4th, 1892. August 4th, 1892. The sun rose over Fall River, casting an eerie calm over the town, unaware of the horrors that had unfolded just hours before within the walls of the Borden home. The day began like any other, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. It was a sweltering summer morning, the air thick with humidity, when the Borden family's world shattered, leaving behind a blood-soaked mystery that would forever stain the history of their quaint town. Lizzy Borden, her voice trembling, called out for Bridget Sullivan, the family's Irish maid. Bridget, occupied with her chores in the yard, rushed inside, her heart pounding with a sense of foreboding. What she found would forever be etched into the annals of true crime, a scene so gruesome, so shocking, that it sent chills down the spines of even the most hardened investigators. The brutality of the attack on Andrew Borden was evident in the sheer number of wounds that marred his lifeless body. He had been struck repeatedly in the head, the force of the blows so savage that they had crushed his skull. One eye hung precariously from its socket, a testament to the killer's unbridled rage. It was a scene that spoke not just of murder, but of a deep-seated hatred, a cold-blooded fury that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned police officers. As if the discovery of Andrew's body wasn't horrific enough, the full extent of the horror that had gripped the Borden home was yet to be revealed. The killer had not been content with a single victim. Upstairs in the guest bedroom lay the body of Abby Borden, Lizzie's stepmother. The murders of Andrew and Abby Borden sent shockwaves through the quiet town of Fall River. Neighbors gathered in hushed groups, their faces etched with a mixture of horror and disbelief. The Bordens, a pillar of the community, had been brutally slain in their own home, and the question on everyone's lips was, who could have done such a thing? The police, their investigation hampered by the stifling summer heat and the gruesome nature of the crime, were baffled. The murder weapon, believed to be a hatchet, was missing. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that the killer was someone known to the victims. Suspicion immediately fell upon those closest to Andrew and Abby, their inner circle of family and friends becoming the focus of the investigation. As the investigation into the Borden murders intensified, the police scoured the crime scene for clues, their every move scrutinized by a public hungry for answers. The missing murder weapon, believed to be a hatchet, became a focal point of their search. Every nook and cranny of the Borden home was meticulously examined, but the hatchet remained elusive, adding another layer of mystery to the already perplexing case. The lack of a murder weapon wasn't the only puzzle that confounded investigators. The crime scene itself presented a baffling contradiction, a scene of unimaginable brutality. yet strangely devoid of certain key pieces of evidence. Despite the savage nature of the attacks, there was a surprising lack of blood splatter, suggesting that the killer had taken meticulous care to avoid leaving behind any incriminating traces. The absence of a murder weapon and the perplexing lack of blood splatter at the crime scene fueled speculation and cast a shadow of doubt over the investigation. A significant moment in the investigation came when police discovered a broken hatchet head in the Borden household's basement. The handle was missing, which made it suspicious because it could have been removed to hide blood evidence. The hatchet head was covered in dust and ash, as if it had been deliberately placed in a spot to appear unused for some time. The hatchet head was taken as evidence and tested for blood. This was a time before modern forensic techniques, so the tests were rudimentary, relying on visual inspections and chemical tests that could only determine the presence of blood, not its origin. When the tests were conducted, it was found that there were traces of blood on the hatchet, but further examination revealed that the blood was not human. It was animal blood. This discovery was a significant setback for the prosecution. The finding of animal blood on the suspected murder weapon weakened the case against Lizzy Borden. Without a definitive murder weapon, the prosecution's case remained largely circumstantial. The hatchet was a critical piece of evidence, but the revelation that it was stained with animal blood, rather than human, cast doubt on whether it was indeed the weapon used in the murders. The uncertainty surrounding the murder weapon was one of the factors that contributed to Lizzy Borden's eventual acquittal. The defense successfully argued that the evidence against her was inconclusive. The inability to definitively link the hatchet to the murders left room for reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors. In the end, the question of what happened to the actual murder weapon remains one of the many mysteries of the Lizzy Borden case, adding to the intrigue and speculation that continues to surround this infamous crime. The investigation into the Borden murders quickly focused on Lizzy, the daughter who found herself the unfortunate soul who stumbled upon the gruesome scene. Her initial shock and horror soon gave way to a detached calmness that struck many as deeply unsettling. Inconsistencies in Lizzy's account cast a long shadow of suspicion over her. Lizzy's whereabouts during the murders became a point of contention. She claimed to have been in the barn searching for fishing sinkers, while her stepmother Abby met her untimely end upstairs. No one could corroborate her alibi, and the timeline clashed with the estimated times of death. The more the police pressed, the more her story seemed to unravel. As the investigation progressed, a peculiar incident further fueled suspicions surrounding Lizzy Borden. Days after the murders, Lizzy was seen burning a dress in the kitchen stove, claiming it was stained with paint and no longer of use. This seemingly innocuous act, however, raised eyebrows amongst the investigators, who saw it as a desperate attempt to dispose of incriminating evidence. The burning of the dress, a blue serge garment, became a focal point of the investigation. Lizzy's explanation, though plausible, seemed suspicious given the timing and the gruesome nature of the crimes. The police theorized that the dress might have been stained with blood, a chilling reminder of Lizzy's alleged involvement in the murders. Investigators speculated that Lizzy might have used the dress to wrap the hatchet, protecting herself from bloodstains while disposing of the murder weapon. The lack of a murder weapon and the burning of the dress, when considered together, painted a damning picture of Lizzy as a cunning and calculating killer. The incident of the burning dress, though circumstantial evidence, played a significant role in shaping public opinion. It became a symbol of Lizzy's alleged guilt, a tangible act that seemed to confirm the darkest suspicions surrounding her. The image of Lizzy standing over the flames, destroying what many believed to be a key piece of evidence, became forever etched in the annals of the Borden case. Despite the circumstantial evidence against Lizzy Borden, a shadow of doubt lingered. The lack of a murder weapon and absence of bloodstains on Lizzy contributed to unease. The police struggled to build a solid case. Lizzy maintained her innocence. Her calm demeanor sowed doubt. Supporters argued she was a scapegoat. Public opinion began to shift. The shadow of doubt followed her into the courtroom. The trial of Lizzy Borden, a social spectacle the likes of which Fall River had never seen, commenced in the summer of 1893. Newspaper reporters from across the country descended upon the sleepy Massachusetts town. The courtroom, packed to capacity, buzzed with anticipation as Lizzy Borden took her place at the defense table. The prosecution painted Lizzie as a cold, calculating killer. They highlighted her strained relationship with her stepmother, her inconsistent statements to the police, and the suspicious incident of the burning dress. The defense countered with a narrative of a daughter wrongly accused. They argued the prosecution's case was built on circumstantial evidence. The jury faced an unenviable task to determine the guilt or innocence of Lizzy Borden. The prosecution, led by Hosea Knowlton, aimed to dismantle Lizzie's facade of innocence. Witnesses painted Lizzie as capable of unspeakable violence. They highlighted her strained family relationships and suspicious circumstances. Bridget Sullivan's emotional testimony described the gruesome scene and Lizzie's calm reaction. The prosecution emphasized the brutality and personal nature of the attacks. They argued the killer was familiar with the Borden home, pointing to the lack of forced entry. The burning of the dress was portrayed as a desperate act of concealment. Lizzie's defense team, led by the formidable Andrew Jennings, mounted a vigorous defense, challenging the prosecution's narrative at every turn. They argued that the prosecution's case was built on speculation, conjecture, and a fundamental misunderstanding of their client. They painted Lizzie as a victim of circumstance, a woman unjustly targeted by a flawed investigation, and a community eager to find a scapegoat for a horrific crime. Jennings, a master strategist known for his courtroom theatrics, skillfully dismantled the prosecution's witnesses, exposing inconsistencies in their testimonies and raising doubts about their recollections of that fateful day. He argued that Lizzie's demeanor, though perhaps unusual, was not proof of guilt, suggesting that her stoicism was a sign of shock and grief, not cold-hearted indifference. The defense team called upon character witnesses who testified to Lizzie's kind nature, her piety, and her devotion to her father. They presented a portrait of a dutiful daughter, well respected within the community, and incapable of the brutal acts attributed to her. They argued that the prosecution, blinded by their determination to secure a conviction, had ignored alternative suspects and focused solely on Lizzie, twisting circumstantial evidence to fit their preconceived notions. The defense emphasized the lack of a murder weapon, arguing that without this crucial piece of evidence, the prosecution's case was built on shaky ground. They suggested that the real killer, fearing capture, had taken the weapon with them, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions that the prosecution had failed to adequately address. After weeks of dramatic testimony, the fate of Lizzy Borden rested in the hands of 12 male jurors. The jury deliberated for a little over an hour. Not guilty, the foreman declared. A collective gasp swept through the gallery. Lizzy Borden was free to go. While legally exonerated, she remained a pariah in Fall River. Lizzie retreated into a life of relative seclusion. The story of the murders at 92 2nd Street continued to captivate. Despite her acquittal, Lizzy Borden's life was irrevocably changed. The shadow of suspicion followed her like a specter. Lizzie found herself ostracized by the community. Friends distanced themselves, believing her a killer. The Borden name became a whispered curse. Lizzie and Emma sought to rebuild their lives. They purchased Maplecroft, a symbol of defiance. The house became their sanctuary. Life at Maplecroft was far from normal. The sisters lived reclusive lives, bound by trauma. The house at 92 2nd Street, the silent witness to the Borden family's gruesome demise, stood empty for years after the murders, its once bright facade now shrouded in melancholy and dread. Over time, the Borden House transformed into a macabre tourist attraction, drawing curiosity seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. Today, the Borden House operates as both a museum and a bed and breakfast, offering visitors a chilling glimpse into the events of that fateful August day. For those brave enough to spend the night, the Borden House offers a variety of ghostly experiences. The Borden House remains one of the most intriguing and unsettling destinations for those seeking a brush with the paranormal. Everyone knows that the Borden House isn't just famous for its gruesome history. It has a reputation that sends shivers down your spine. People say the spirits of Andrew and Abby Borden still linger within those walls. Some believe Lizzie's presence lingers too, forever tied to the scene of the crime. There's no denying the unsettling atmosphere that pervades 92 2nd Street. Over the years, folks from all walks of life have crossed the threshold of the Borden House, drawn by curiosity or a genuine belief in the supernatural. Many have walked away with tales that'll raise the hair on the back of your neck. These are accounts from everyday folks who experienced something unexplainable within those walls. A tour guide swore she saw a figure standing in the upstairs window. A tall, imposing figure silhouetted against the moonlight that vanished quickly. A couple woke to the sound of heavy footsteps pacing in the hallway. The unseen walker stopped right outside their door, then vanished. Visitors and staff have reported objects moving mysteriously. A lamp, left untouched, found overturned on the floor. A book, plucked from its shelf, left open on a chair. These occurrences weave a tapestry of the paranormal that continues to draw skeptics and believers alike. It's no surprise, given its reputation, that the Borden House has become a prime location for paranormal investigators. Armed with EMF readers, EVP recorders, and cameras equipped to capture images in the dark of night, these modern-day ghost hunters come seeking proof of the rumors, hoping to document the presence of the unseen. And they haven't been disappointed. EVP recordings, those eerie snippets of sound captured on audio equipment, have yielded what some believe to be voices from beyond the grave. Whispers, moans, even full sentences seemingly uttered by unseen entities have sent chills down the spines of even the most hardened investigators. Then there are the photographs, images captured in the dead of night that reveal strange anomalies. Orbs of light floating in midair, shadowy figures lurking in the corners of rooms, and unexplained mists swirling in the darkness. These visual anomalies, often dismissed as dust particles or tricks of the light, have fueled the debate about the paranormal activity at the Borden House, providing fodder for both believers and skeptics alike. The Borden House, a place where history and mystery collide, has become a testing ground for the latest in paranormal investigation techniques. It's a place where the veil between the living and the dead seems thin, where the echoes of the past whisper in the present, and where the search for answers continues to captivate and intrigue those drawn to the unexplainable. The face in the wall is one of the most mysterious and chilling aspects of the lore surrounding the Lizzy Borden house. According to legend, a strange face has been seen or reported on the wall in the basement of the Borden home, where a broken hatchet, potentially linked to the murders, was found during the investigation. The legend of the face seems to have emerged over time as paranormal enthusiasts and ghost hunters began to visit the house. The basement, a particularly eerie part of the home, is where many visitors have reported strange occurrences, including seeing what appears to be a human face imprinted or manifested on the wall. Some believe that this face might be a paranormal residue linked to the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden, whose bodies were discovered upstairs, though there are no historical records from the time of the trial mentioning this phenomenon. Visitors to the Borden house, particularly those who venture into the basement during tours or paranormal investigations, have described seeing the outline of a face appearing on the wall, often in areas where water stains or natural discoloration occur. The appearance of the face is said to be fleeting but unsettling, with some describing it as resembling Andrew Borden, who was killed upstairs. Others believe that the face could belong to a malevolent spirit or presence, not necessarily tied to the Borden family, but rather linked to the house's dark and violent history. Paranormal investigators have speculated that the face might be a manifestation of trapped energy from the traumatic events of the murders. Skeptics have offered more grounded explanations for the phenomenon, attributing the face to patterns in the aging and weathered wall, which could be mistaken for a face in certain lighting conditions. This concept is known as pareidolia, a psychological phenomenon in which the human brain perceives familiar patterns like faces in random stimuli. Despite possible logical explanations, the legend of the face in the wall has become a key part of the haunted reputation of the Lizzy Borden house. It adds another layer of mystery and intrigue to the already unsettling history of one of America's most infamous murder sites. The basement remains a focal point for ghost hunters and those curious about the paranormal, with many hoping to catch a glimpse of the infamous face that seems to haunt the walls of this historic, haunted home. Chloe Sevigny, a longtime fan of the Lizzy Borden case, decided to visit the Borden house in Fall River, Massachusetts, with her then boyfriend. Intrigued by the history and the mystery surrounding the murders, Sevigny wanted to immerse herself in the atmosphere of the house where the gruesome events took place. During their stay at the bed and breakfast, Sevigny and her boyfriend experienced unsettling events that left a lasting impression on them both. They stayed in the John Morse room, the very room where Abby Borden was brutally murdered. While they didn't witness any ghostly apparitions, the couple experienced a heavy, oppressive feeling throughout the night, making it difficult to sleep. Sevigny later described feeling a distinct presence in the room, which heightened her sense of unease. At one point, Sevigny's boyfriend was so disturbed by the atmosphere that he refused to stay in the room any longer. The experience was so intense that it lingered with Sevigny long after they left the house. She described the house as having a heavy energy and mentioned that the visit deepened her fascination with the Lizzy Borden case. Sevigny's experience at the Lizzy Borden house significantly influenced her passion for the project. The sense of dread and the strange occurrences she felt during her stay reinforced her desire to explore Lizzy Borden's story on screen. Sevigny's personal connection to the house and the case brought an authenticity and depth to her portrayal of Lizzy Borden in the film. In interviews, Sevigny has mentioned that the haunting atmosphere of the Borden house, coupled with her strange experiences, gave her a unique perspective on the character of Lizzie and the events that transpired in that house over a century ago. This personal experience helped her bring a sense of realism and empathy to the role, making Lizzie a compelling exploration of one of America's most notorious murder cases. Lizzy Borden case has captivated the public for over a century, and its mystery has inspired numerous films, television shows, and documentaries. Here's a look at some of the most notable movies and adaptations about Lizzy Borden and the infamous murders. Lizzy Borden Took an Axe, 2014, starring Christina Ricci, Clea Duvall, Billy Campbell. This Lifetime TV movie dramatizes the events leading up to and following the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden. Christina Ricci stars as Lizzy Borden, portraying her as a cold and calculating woman who may or may not have committed the murders. The film takes creative liberties with the story and leans into the sensationalized aspects of the case. It blends fact with fiction, creating a thrilling and sometimes exaggerated portrayal of the trial and its aftermath. The film received mixed reviews but was praised for Ricci's performance, which captures Lizzie's eerie and unsettling persona. The Lizzy Borden Chronicles, 2015, starring Christina Ricci, Clea Duvall, and Jonathan Banks. A follow-up to Lizzy Borden Took an Axe, this 8-episode TV miniseries continues the story, exploring Lizzie's life after the trial. It presents a fictionalized account of her post-acquittal years, portraying her as a dangerous and manipulative woman who continues to commit crimes. The series mixes historical elements with a more modern crime thriller style, offering a fictionalized version of what might have happened had Lizzie been involved in more sinister activities after her acquittal. Like the original movie, the miniseries was praised for Christina Ricci's compelling and dark portrayal of Lizzie, but was critiqued for straying far from historical accuracy. Next up, Lizzie, 2018, starring Chloe Sevigny, Kristen Stewart, and Fiona Shaw. This psychological thriller delves into the relationship between Lizzy Borden, Chloe Sevigny, and the Borden family maid, Bridget Sullivan, Kristen Stewart. The film suggests that Lizzie and Bridget had a secret romantic relationship, which could have played a role in the motivation for the murders. Lizzie takes a more serious and intimate look at Lizzy Borden's life, focusing on the oppressive nature of her household, her strained relationship with her father, and the possibility of a deeper psychological explanation for the murders. The film received positive reviews for its acting performances, especially from Sevigny and Stewart. It was praised for its atmospheric tension and its humanization of Lizzie, portraying her as a victim of her circumstances as much as a potential killer. Next we have The Legend of Lizzy Borden, 1975, starring Elizabeth Montgomery, Fiona LaFlanagan, and Katherine Helmond. This made-for-TV movie is one of the earliest attempts to dramatize the Lizzy Borden case. Elizabeth Montgomery plays Lizzie, portraying her as a complex and emotionally troubled woman. The film explores both the murders and the subsequent trial, leaving the question of Lizzie's guilt or innocence ambiguous. The film is somewhat faithful to the historical details of the case, but takes some dramatic liberties. It leans into the horror of the murders, while also exploring Lizzie's psychological state. The film was well received when it first aired, and Montgomery's portrayal of Lizzie became iconic. the movie remains a classic among fans of true crime stories. Lizzy Borden's Revenge, 2013, starring Veronica Ricci, Marlene McCohen, and Tiffany Gray. This low-budget horror film takes a fictional and supernatural approach to the Lizzy Borden case. The plot follows a group of teenagers who visit the Borden House and inadvertently awaken Lizzy Borden's vengeful spirit, leading to a series of ghostly and violent events. The film is a campy, horror genre take on the story, mixing the Lizzy Borden legend with ghostly revenge tropes. The movie did not receive much critical attention, and reviews were generally negative, but it has gained a cult following among fans of B-movie horror. Lizzy Borden, 1952. Episode of suspense, starring Catherine Barr. This black and white television episode aired as part of the anthology series Suspense. The episode presents a dramatic and atmospheric retelling of the Borden murders and the trial. Like other adaptations, it leaves Lizzie's guilt ambiguous. The episode is part of a suspense-driven TV series and focuses more on building tension around the mystery of whether Lizzie was guilty. As an early TV adaptation, it is less well known today, but it remains a notable piece of the early Lizzy Borden pop culture legacy. Fall River, 2021. This four-part docuseries takes a true crime approach, examining the infamous Borden murders in the context of the broader history of Fall River, Massachusetts. While it focuses more on later crimes associated with the area, it draws connections to the Borden case and its lasting impact on the town's dark legacy. The series takes a documentary approach, blending historical analysis with modern-day interviews and investigations into Fall River's haunted history. Fall River was praised for its investigative depth and its ability to contextualize the Borden murders within the broader, often sinister history of the town. The Lizzy Borden case continues to inspire filmmakers and storytellers, each offering a different interpretation of the woman at the center of one of America's most infamous murder trials. From historical dramas to supernatural horror, Lizzy Borden has become an iconic figure whose legend grows with every retelling, ensuring her place in both true crime and pop culture history. The Lizzy Borden case transcends time and place. It speaks to our primal fears within our own homes. Evil doesn't always wear a monstrous face. Sometimes, it's familiar. The story offers a glimpse into a pivotal moment in American history. The rise of mass media fueled public interest, transforming a local tragedy into a national obsession. Lizzie's enigmatic personality made her a lightning rod for both condemnation and admiration. The Borden murders resonate as a cultural touchstone, reflecting our fascination with the dark side of human nature. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe.